Welcome to the AI Security Update, hosted by Dr. Anmol Agarwal, where we break down the latest in AI and security with experts on the front lines, focused on what you need to know without the hype. Welcome to the AI Security Update, where we discuss the latest in AI and security. Today, I'm excited to introduce our guest, Kevin White. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Good to be here. How's everybody? I hope everybody's doing good and keeping warm. So I look forward to the conversation.
So great to have you here, Kevin. So can you introduce yourself and your background?
Yeah, my name is Kevin White. I am currently a solutions engineer at Cloudflare. I have a 20-year background in IT, varying from support to network administrator, system administrator, and now I'm currently enthralled in internet security.
So based on your experience, how has AI security been applied to different scenarios?
Surprisingly, in a lot of different places, from customers that are concerned about prompt injection, customers who are concerned about using AI at all, customers who use AI but are concerned about what's put into AI, a lot of different things. It's surprising to think how large the reach or scope of AI is and how many different ways security is impacted by AI, whether for the good or for the bad.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think AI security is everywhere right now. Are there any challenges that you've seen with AI, with security, or with AI security in general?
I think the big challenge that I've seen with AI security is that it's just moving so fast. And it puts IT departments on the heels in a lot of cases because they're just not equipped in a lot of cases to keep up with how fast AI is moving. I mean, if we just look at like video generation, over 2 years, it's come leaps and bounds, right? And we have so many LLMs now that we didn't have before. People are self-hosting things. So it's hard to kind of keep up with where all the holes are in AI security. So yeah, I think the fast pace of AI security is kind of what makes it hard for security teams to keep
Is there a story or scenario that illustrates this challenge for our listeners, just so they have an example?
Well, I think everybody knows the prompt injection story with Chevy, right? Chevy had an AI and somebody used prompt injection to buy a truck for $1, which was very, very silly. But I always use that example because I feel like that shows both sides of the security issue with AI, right? One, with making sure you scope AI, but two, people jumping on the bandwagon too quick without thinking about securing those workloads first. And then three, it has real world ramifications, right? That's revenue that's been lost, that's trust in AI that's lost. So, you have different stories like that. I mean, I talk to customers all the time, mostly from the standpoint of, zero trust and making sure like their users are using AI in a secure way. But there's definitely those big ones, those big name situations that come into play as well.
Could you just explain the zero trust concept?
Yeah. So zero trust concept is exactly what it says. Security has been very much control through location, right? But when COVID hit, everybody's working remotely, everybody's working over the internet, and so that kind of moves out the your security landscape. So zero trust comes from it from the standpoint, there's no implicit trust. Everything is checked, everything is verified. So when you talk about AI in that case, you want to make sure that all those things are checked. You want to make sure that all those interactions with AI agents are checked. You want to make sure your user are using approved AI.
Your example that you gave, buying a truck for $1, like that shouldn't happen. So you need some way to check what is AI doing, what is your chatbot agreeing to before you actually let it accept a decision. And I think that's really important with e-commerce as well. Like we saw with Amazon, they have the Rufus chatbot where you can ask questions to it. And some people were misusing that because, as you're aware, generative AI and these chatbots, they can be very expensive, like very computationally expensive, and it costs companies a lot of money.
When you talk about giving AI, I was watching a video the other day, and it was a video where somebody was talking about their AI agency that they built up to over six figures, and they were showing how you can make like, oh, you can make a finance application and just like let AI do everything. Let AI make the application, let AI test the application. And while it seemed cool, the security side of my brain was screaming like, "Hey, there's a lot of things that you don't know that this app is doing. Maybe corners is cutting to do certain things, but we're moving to that place where that fundamental knowledge is necessary, but not necessary. Right? You can let the AI do everything for you without understanding the underlying work that is being done under the surface. So error messages, or maybe adding certain security parameters. I see it on Reddit all the time where people will put up applications that they vibe coded, but those who actually know what they're doing will show all the security loopholes in the application. So it's very scary, especially if you're a business, to put your trust from your users on the line just so that they can ask a chatbot something that they could definitely ask.
Chatbots, they're vulnerable to different kinds of attacks. For example, prompt injection, right? You can just ask a query or question to a chatbot and then get it to do something that it shouldn't do. We've seen this all the time with chatbots is while they're very useful, like being able to ask Rufus or any of these other chatbots questions, people are creative and they always try to find a loophole and they always try to find a way around what you're trying to enforce and protect. And one thing we talk about in AI security is this idea of guardrails. So, this whole concept of let's restrict AI and say, oh, no, go only this way. Don't go this way or don't go this way. And then people would say, okay, they said only go this way, but then you can turn this way or you can turn left or you can turn right. Just turn left and right, not at the beginning, just wait a little bit and then turn left or right. Just so people understand, it's like so many creative ways people can just trick these AI chatbots. And that's why I think, Kevin, you made a really great point about zero trust. And you mentioned that fundamental skills, they're not needed, but at the same time, they're needed. So could you elaborate on that?
Yeah. I think that we're getting to a point where a lot of, like I'm not a developer in the least. That's not my gift. But if I was to use AI to make an application that people will be using in business cases, that's a big breach of security in my eyes, right? And now I'm on the hook to support that thing without the underlying knowledge of how to support that thing, right? So even if you have people who are making businesses off of stringing together chat bots, I know NAN is a big thing, and it's starting to be a big business, and people making NAN workflows that they sell to businesses. It's cool, right? And it's great, but the reality of it is, if you don't know what each brick of that building is doing, that's very dangerous, especially for people who do know what those bricks do. They know the vulnerabilities, right? They know the capabilities. Um, I mean, my background, I was told like never give a solution to a customer that you're not ready to support long term. Right? That's always burned into my brain. So I think fundamental knowledge of these processes and how these things work are very, very important because things go bad. There are vulnerabilities that come up. There are vulnerabilities that need to be patched. And if everybody's a developer, that's a kind of, in my mind, a scary world. Like, yeah, it's cool. A lot of things get made, a lot of cool things get made, but for those of us who have to support those things when they break, that's scary for them. For those security people who have to secure those things, that's scary for them. So I think try to think about all sides of it.
Yeah, great point. So one other question I have is, what is a current event you can think of related to AI security that think people should pay attention to?
I don't know about a current event, but I would tell people AI is another bubble in the long list of tech bubbles that we've had. It's popular, it's growing in popularity, it's awesome, it's good, but it's a tool, right? A hammer is a tool. It could be used to build a house, or it could be used to murder somebody, right? So the intention of the person using said tool comes into play. Um, we also have to think about the fact that AI can be used by hackers. I remember hearing about a vulnerability with somebody's Salesforce instance where the hacker didn't necessarily know how Salesforce worked in order to infiltrate, but they use AI to kind of teach them how to go in there, how to infiltrate a Salesforce instance, right? So it's great that there's a free flowing river of information, but again, people's intentions, we can't forget those. It's the reason why people like you and me have jobs, right? We have to think about the bad intentions of others. And I think about, I had a friend that was a cop, and he was like, I love being a cop, but also hate the fact that I have to be, right? I love being a security analyst. I love being a solutions engineer, but I hate the fact that my job is necessary. I have to think about, I have to be on the other side of what bad people are. And so, users and customers that I talk to, I try to make them aware of that human aspect of AI. Yes, we know AI is, machine learning and logic, but it's still people. It's still people intentions. I think about data poisoning within AI. People take AI, at its word without doing any sort of investigation or checking the information, right? We know AI tends to hallucinate. So it's just so many different things that people are giving implicit trust to AI that I would urge them not to. It's a tool and it should be used as such, but it shouldn't make it so that you don't have to do that on the line.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I was at a conference a few months ago and there were students there, maybe high school, early college, and they were just saying, "Oh, I'll just ask AI. AI probably knows the answers better than us." And I was thinking, what happened? Now people are just relying on AI. They're saying, like, let me just ask AI. AI probably knows the answer better than me. And that's not the case at all. We've seen it all the time with hallucinations, right? You ask AI a question, and all it's doing is getting data for you, getting all this data. And then it's up to you to analyze this data and see like what actually makes sense or what is just something that's made up on the internet. One thing AI used to struggle with, it's getting better now, but it used to struggle with math problems. Now it's getting better. Now the models are getting better at that. But, people, unfortunately, they're using AI for things that instead of using their brain to understand how does this work, they're just saying, let's just use AI. And I think that that's the scariness of it is if we stop thinking about where could AI go wrong and then just implicitly trust it like you're mentioning, you have to think about the consequences. So just the other day I was talking to someone and she was saying in another episode that people, they just trust AI, but we need to have tabletop exercises for incident response. And so in our previous episode, she was talking about how she uses tabletop exercises to say, like, here's what could go wrong. And this is how you have an action plan if something goes wrong. And if something is very stressful, you need to have like 2 or 3 things you do instead of a 50-page report. And so even though when you have an incident, you want to do everything and you want to follow the 50-page report, you also need to think about the humans behind it. So I think that also connects to what you're saying is we need to make these products and tools usable. I mean, vibe coding is cool, but then we need to make sure that when we support these products, that it's also in a way that people understand, like, this is why we're suggesting these things to you. We're not trying to make your life harder with security. We're just trying to make it secure so that you don't have X, Y, and Z consequences.
Oh yeah, I think that's when I have my conversations with customers. One of the biggest impediments to people widely adopting zero trust is that you have to change user behavior. Right? It's not just changing some boxes or changing some software or hardware. You have to change how users interact with their technology. And that can be very, very hard. You just get bad habits. They get used to doing things in an insecure way. some of my background was a lot of my background was like law firm IT. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen some lawyer, some secretary walk past their office and I see their password on a sticky note. So when we talk about those things, like you mentioned, that human aspect needs to be there. Those tabletop exercises are important. If you don't know what those logs mean, or you don't know what this alert means, you're not really in a position to effectively and efficiently stand up to those threats, right? So it's that fundamental knowledge is very, very important. And again, like I'm all for making things easier, but just like you said, like at what cost, right? At what cost do we stop people thinking? You know, I have two kids. Well, they're not kids anymore. My daughter's 28, my son is 19, and I've always told them like, hey, no, you need to think. Yes, I work in IT. Yes, computers are cool, but I still want to see your work, your math homework, right? I want them to learn to think, and it's just sometimes, just like you mentioned, you'll meet people, and you'll meet college students that don't understand fundamental things, and it's very scary because it's like I have to work next to you, right? I have to work next to you, and I have to trust that you know what you're doing. It scares me a little bit, um, but you know, I think we just have to figure out, just like we always have, how to make all these things work together. Um, how to make sure like we put things like AI in its proper place, because I don't think it's going away. But again, I think we need to learn how to efficiently use that tool.
Like a lot of people talk about calculators and how now with calculators we can just use them to calculate the math equations. And I've talked to some people, they say, AI is kind of like a calculator. I would say it's a lot more than that, but it's kind of a similar concept in that students are now learning how to use AI to make things efficient, to accelerate their productivity in some cases, but they also need to understand that AI can make mistakes, right? I feel like I keep saying this almost in every episode, but it's so true is that you can use AI to help you understand something you have no background about. You have no clue about how something works. Like for me, it would be like how do you build a rocket, right? And I just want to learn how that works because I'm just curious. But I don't want to actually use that knowledge to really build a rocket myself from scratch without anyone helping me, right? I still need people who have experience building a rocket to guide me and say, okay, yeah, AI got this right. But also, AI didn't talk about this thing or that thing. And so, for everyday people, I've heard, they use AI to solve some common house maintenance issues. Like someone on LinkedIn, he was saying he uses AI for his plumbing, and AI actually gave him the right answer. So that's something, especially with the winter time, we might be using AI for these things like, okay, how do I make sure I'm prepared for the freeze or the winter storm that's coming? But at the same time, I would say for organizations or when you're working with critical information or critical missions, you need to make sure you have a group of people that know what they're doing and they have the experience to help guide you.
Definitely makes a lot of sense. Um, it's funny that you mentioned calculators, because that was that was a fight that me and my son had when he was in middle school. He would want to use a calculator for homework, and I would always tell him no. Um, and he would get upset. Dad, why are you making this so hard? This is harder than it needs to be. But again, it's good to know the how you get from A to C. Right, B is very important. And I think sometimes AI is used to get rid of B, just to just like you mentioned, to get an answer. And I use AI too. I've been using it more begrudgingly, right? To just get context on certain things, but it's still something that I find it hard to just like implicitly trust, right? So I'll get answers from AI, but I'll like scrutinize the answers. I'll read through them and like, okay, that sounds weird, right? Or that doesn't really line up with my experience. I think the word that we're looking for is context, right? Information without proper context can be very dangerous. Like you mentioned, you made a rocket, but you talking to somebody who talking to like an actual rocket engineer, they have context, right? They know the gotchas. They know that, hey, if you use this type of fuel versus this type of fuel, what issues you're gonna have. So context is important. We want to make sure that we keep context in this proper place. Sometimes just getting the answer without the context, I don't feel like is an answer at all.
Yeah, great point. Last question I have is just think about, I think we've already touched on this, but just think about an everyday scenario and talk about some of the AI security concepts related to this everyday scenario for those of our listeners who aren't in tech like us.
I mean, everyday scenarios, I wouldn't necessarily say AI, but I would say like social media has always been a sticking point for me. And now we have more AI creeping in there. Just being intentional about how much information we give these systems. So if you may not necessarily be in tech, but you interface and you interact with tech all the time, be careful the things that you ask AI. I've seen and heard some weird things. People having AI companions and you know using AI for therapy and talking to AI. Having whole relationships with AI. And it on the surface it seems like upfront it seems very very weird, um, but it's understandable. But again, context is necessary. Um, AI. I was watching. I saw a post on Reddit, and it was talking about an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm gonna nerd out a little bit. It was an episode where Jordan LaForge had to fix something with the ship, and he just, didn't have all the information he needed to fix it. So he goes to the holodeck and he asks the computer to create an AI version of the creator of the ship. And they have they go through the episode, they're bumping heads, they're not really seeing eye to eye on a lot of things. And then slowly but surely, they become close, they become friends. And in a later episode, Jordy ends up meeting the actual person. And that person is nothing like the AI companion that the ship made. During the end of that episode, it was mentioned that that AI wasn't the actual person. The AI was more of him than it was of the person. It was reacting to what he was. And it was something that was very profound because computers at their core follow instructions given to them by the person who's operating. So even with AI is going to give you back what you give it. We've seen it time and time again. A lot of the quality of what AI gives you is based on the prompts that it gets. So let's keep in mind that for all its goods and bads, AI is still a reflection of who we are as people. We need to remember that. So when regular people who aren't in our space and who aren't in security, when you're using AI in daily life, be practical about what you're using it for, but especially if you're using it at work. If you can't explain what the answer that AI is giving you, you shouldn't be presenting that to your boss. Plain and simple. So it's very important that again, we have practicality and we understand what's happening when we're dealing with these things. Again, treat AI like a tool and not the answer. It will always be my my go-to or my consensus when it comes down to using AI. But again, never stop learning. Give don't don't give up the ability to learn just because it's easy. You still want to dig in, you still want to learn these things. This is going to make you more rounded out as a person.
And I think we see that with AI is like it will just agree with you no matter what you say. If I say, I think this city is the best, and then it will say, okay, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I think this sports team is the best, and it'll say, okay, I agree. And then I'll tell it to give me all the reasons why this sports team is the best. It will give you a list of reasons. It will basically follow with whatever you're trying to prompt the AI for. And some people have actually gotten into trouble with this because I saw a story, I think on LinkedIn, maybe 6 months ago. Someone ended up in the hospital because he asked AI about his medical symptoms and he took pictures of his medical symptoms. Unfortunately, AI gave him the wrong answer and said, oh, yeah, you have this condition. And it ended up being something completely different. And he ended up in the hospital. And then again, he asked AI, like, oh, it turns out I have this. And then AI is like, yes, you have this, and here's why. But AI didn't tell him that he had that condition in the beginning. So that's just a thing for an everyday person is really be cautious about using AI. Sometimes it will get the answer right. But what happens when it gets it wrong? You should use it as a tool, but don't rely on it.
But also, like, be in a position to know why it was wrong.
Yeah.
Have the resources you need. So, an example that you used, which was a perfect example, right? Go to your doctor and say, hey, I was looking at AI. This is the diagnosis it gave me. Do you agree? Right? Have some context there before you start taking pills or doing weird stuff like that. So again, just like we're saying, like context is always necessary. And I mean, let's be honest, even with people, we're always told with doctors get a second opinion. Why? Because one doctor may not see all those things. One doctor may not have all the context or all the experience, right? So if you get, a second opinion, at least you have some more information. It should be no different for AI. Yeah, let's be honest. Like even when you ask AI the same question, you're not going to get the same answer, which was like mind blowing to me. Like I remember putting in a prompt and then putting in like the same prompt like months later, and the answer had like drastically changed. And it was one of those things where it was like, okay, I could see somebody getting themselves into trouble, taking what the AI said as law, if the answer is going to change. That's why like that data poisoning is a big thing, right? It's training itself on the collective information and prompts of people. So again, and you hit the nail on the head. Like, be very cautious about that implicit trust.
Yeah, it's very, very important to be cautious. I think that's the tagline for this episode is context is everything.
I like that title.
So thank you so much, Kevin. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I've enjoyed the conversation. I hope to have more of them in the future. Um, I thank you for the opportunity to talk about this.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show, Kevin. This concludes our episode. We'll be back next time with more great conversations. Thank you for listening to the AI Security Update. No hype, just what you need to know. Subscribe to catch the latest episodes and connect with me, Dr. Anmol, on LinkedIn for more insights from the world of AI security. We'll see you next time.